a resident from the building opposite, unable to take the dire situation any longer, decided to end it all by jumping from the building. This desperate act didn't even faze the group in Zhang Yi's building. Amidst the chaos, Zhang Yi's phone rang, revealing a call from Uncle Yu. Relief washed over Zhang Yi as he heard his uncle's voice. Uncle Yu expressed gratitude, saying he survived the ordeal thanks to the supplies Zhang Yi had warned him to stockpile. Uncle Yu mentioned he was now with Sheila Mei, the single mother whose son was sick, and they desperately needed medicine. Zhang Yi, having a soft spot for his uncle, agreed to help. He instructed Uncle Yu to come later for the medicine. After the call, Zhang Yi took a sip of his juice and informed Joker about his uncle's survival. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Checking the security cameras, Zhang Yi saw a figure standing there. He prepared himself, wondering what new challenge this visit would bring. Zhang Yi glanced at the security camera and saw his uncle, accompanied by Zili, standing at the door. Without hesitation, he tossed the medicine through the door's opening onto the floor. His uncle expressed gratitude for the help, but Zili wanted more. She knew Zhang Yi had a fireplace and pleaded to come in so her baby could warm up. Zhang Yi weighed his options. While he didn't want to inconvenience his uncle, safety was paramount. He fibbed, claiming the coal had run out and that he and his girlfriend were bundled up in several coats to stay warm. Despite Uncle Yu's attempts to defuse the situation, Zili persisted, insisting they couldn't go on without shelter, especially since Joker, the doctor, was with them. Zhang Yi came up with a quick excuse, mentioning that Zili was engaged to Joker, implying that she had a reason to stay with him. This seemed to embarrass Zili, but Uncle Yu had had enough. He firmly stated that they had received the medicine, and it was time to leave. Relieved, Zhang Yi sent them away, feeling drained from the encounter. Reflecting on how this woman had survived in his past life only to exhaust him now, he decided to rest on his girlfriend's lap and enjoy the view. Zhang Yi couldn't shake the feeling that Zili's presence might disrupt his plans. So, when Uncle returned home and questioned her motives for taking advantage of his nephew's kindness, it didn't come as a surprise. Lima defended herself, arguing that she was only acting in the baby's best interest. However, Uncle reminded her that Zhang Yi had saved them by advising them to stock up on supplies before the apocalypse hit. Lima countered, accusing Zhang Yi of selfishness and claiming that he only provided the medicine to gain favors later. Uncle, incensed by her accusations, firmly stated that there were limits to everything. He may be old, but he wasn't naive, and if she continued to slander Zhang Yi, she would find herself alone. Recognizing that the conversation wasn't going her way, the cunning woman wisely chose to let the matter drop. The next morning, while everyone was snug in their blankets, a group from the neighboring building decided to dig their way through the snow, making a surprise entrance into Zhang Yi's territory. Little did they know, they were about to face a feisty foe. As they tunneled in, each person they encountered was met with suspicion, and the first unfortunate soul to stumble upon them received a snowy surprise, a gentle nudge from a single shot, and a dramatic flip in the snow. But these invaders were determined. They came prepared with dynamite to blast through any obstacles in their path. Boom! The explosion shook the snow-covered landscape, and Zhang Yi was rudely awakened by the absurd noise. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he peered through his security cameras to find construction workers from nearby, probably curious about the commotion. But no damage was done to his sturdy door, much to his annoyance. Fuming at the audacity of these would-be intruders, Zhang Yi decided to show them who's boss. With a toss of a grenade, he gave them a warm welcome they wouldn't forget. And when his Glock came into play, he made sure they all took a little nap, his ammo running low, a sign that his secret stash wasn't so secret after all. Meanwhile, our lovely doctor, embarrassed by the racket but determined to keep up appearances, disguised her fear and went about her day, albeit a bit shaken. With the threat now clear, Zhang Yi knew he had to take action to protect his turf. Quick on his feet, he spun a tale for the other residents, blaming the disturbance on the neighbors' failed attempt to blow up his place and rob them all. And with a swift kick, he sent them packing, ensuring peace in the neighborhood once more. As gratitude poured in from his fellow residents, Zhang Yi couldn't help but smirk. After all, when it comes to protecting his home, he's always one step ahead. For further details, he gave his uncle a call. This group that arrived now is from Building 26, and Wang Tanfong is the group leader. According to the uncle, he carried out the same actions as Kun Jiang performed in this building. He overturned the house, took over the space, and stole food. Zhang Yi made it clear to his uncle that he overturned many, so they will come back for revenge and try something, so they must unite the neighboring residents and defend themselves. Speaking only with joke here, Zhang Yi said that the neighbors, if given the chance, will stab him in the back. She must take on the mission of gathering information about the other building groups together with Uncle Yu only 2 days past, and now she was dressed as a maid and reporting everything her intelligence service found out. Stop looking in the wrong place and pay attention. Joker explains that the strongest groups dominating the neighborhood are the group from Building 26 that came here 2 days ago and another group from Building 21. Still, a group from 2 other buildings must have strength, but they haven't done anything yet. With just this, Zhang Yi deduced that the residents of the other buildings have already turned on each other instead of uniting and are no longer a threat. He tells her to continue collecting information, and for some reason she blushes, perhaps thinking something else would happen. The same group from Building 26 returned to the building, and this time they started overturning people from the other apartments in the building and left the message that until Zhang Yi leaves, all the building's residents will die soon. This news spread and disrupted our couple's exercise. The building's residents were demanding that Zhang Yi take action. Seeing this, anger returned. He sent texts and audio messages saying that everyone's life means nothing to him and they must defend themselves alone. Shortly after, Zhang Yi called his uncle, saying that now it's his turn to shine in the building group. In the building group chat, Zhang Yi made a rallying call. He pointed out that the gang from Building 26 had only 20 people. If they united, they could fight back and win. Everyone agreed they had to act. He also mentioned that no one had been eating well for days, except for him. Being young, strong, and well-fed, he was the only one with the strength to lead them. He sent a message in the chat saying he could help them face the rival building, but only if they followed his orders. The residents were cautious, agreeing only to orders that wouldn't endanger their lives. Zhang Yi, calm in his well-stocked home, laid out the reality. They had to take risks. Otherwise, they might as well wait for the gang from Building 26 to come and kill them all. Uncle Yu supported Zhang Yi, encouraging everyone to agree. To motivate the hungry, Zhang Yi mentioned that there were vehicles capable of traveling through the snow. If they confronted the gang, he could fetch food for everyone. This promise swayed the neighbors, even the most cautious ones. With the hope of gaining food and not getting killed by the rival gang, everyone agreed to put Zhang Yi in charge. Suddenly, he wasn't just another resident, he was their leader, their savior. Under his command, they prepared to face whatever challenges came their way. Now that everyone saw him as their savior, Zhang Yi prepared for his first expedition outside. Equipped with special cold-resistant vests and clothing, he wouldn't have any trouble in the freezing conditions. When Joker offered to accompany him, Zhang Yi firmly said no. She was to stay in the apartment, as he trusted her completely to manage things in his absence. But as soon as he left, a sly smirk appeared on his face as he snapped his fingers, making all the supplies in the apartment disappear. Zhang Yi descended to the 4th floor and jumped out of a window, landing on the snow that had piled up to the building's height. Anyone else attempting to traverse this snow would sink and perish. Luckily, Zhang Yi had a secret weapon, a snowmobile stored in his dimensional space. As he zoomed off, someone from another building caught a glimpse of him, but it wasn't clear if they saw the snowmobile materialize or just him riding it. His destination was the Tianhu City Police Station. Breaking through a glass window, he entered with ease. Inside, he sought weapons and ammunition. He found the officers on duty, who had succumbed to the cold without proper clothing or heaters. Showing his respect, Zhang Yi covered their bodies, acknowledging that they were once the city's protectors. He found the keys to the station, granting him access to all the rooms, including the weapons room. Inside, it was a treasure trove of guns and ammo, which he swiftly transferred into his dimensional loot space. Next on his list was food for his group. He hopped back onto his snowmobile and made his way to the shopping mall. Digging through the snow, he broke through the ceiling and entered. The supermarket's fruits and meats were frozen solid, but they would suffice for those starving back home. He gathered everything salvageable, packed it into bags, and returned to his snowmobile. Upon returning to his building, Jang Yi noticed the leader of Building 26 watching him with envy, eager to steal his snowmobile. The residents of Jang Yi's building had also seen and heard the snowmobile, stirring curiosity and hope. Uncle Yu was delighted to see his nephew return with more food, and Jang Yi seized the moment to address everyone. He emphasized how difficult it was to venture outside in such cold weather and find food buried in the snow. Uncle Yu, seizing the opportunity to rally the residents, shouted, calling Jang Yi a hero. With the spoiled food and a gun in hand, Jang Yi laid down the law. Anyone who wanted food had to be ready to obey his orders. As expected, the residents of Building 26 came demanding food, threatening their lives. Jang Yi's first order was bold and ruthless. They were to steal back their food and eliminate the gang members from Building 26. He announced that anyone who made a kill would receive 5 days' worth of food. The mere prospect of securing food for 5 days drove everyone into a frenzy, and they attacked the gang members from Building 26 with unexpected ferocity. The weak and fearful residents suddenly turned into a force to be reckoned with, overwhelming the gang members. Jang Yi and his fiancée watched as the residents celebrated their victory. Some of the surviving gang members fled back to Building 26. Joker knew she could save their wounded, but it would cost valuable medicine and food, and she knew Jang Yi wouldn't allow it. Now, this raises a question: is Jang Yi a villain, an anti-hero, or just someone doing what it takes to survive? He started using people in a cunning way, gathering everyone and congratulating those who were in VPS with the most kills, rewarding them with food. This was a calculated move to encourage loyalty and effort. He held the gun and controlled the food supply, wielding power over everyone. However, when it was someone Jang Yi saw slacking off, he scorned them and tossed candy at them. One person complained about the unfairness, but Jang Yi challenged him, questioning if he had the courage to argue further. The man stayed silent, knowing the consequences. Shua, a resident who hadn't participated in the fight, tried to explain that he couldn't find a way to join in. Jang Yi made it clear he didn't care, only results mattered. When Shua persisted, claiming Jang Yi was treating him unfairly, Jang Yi gave an order, and two neighbors held Shua. Jang Yi then made an example of him, stepping on the candy Shua had been given and grabbing his hair. He made it clear, work equals food, no work equals no food. With this harsh display of power, Jang Yi solidified his control, ensuring everyone knew the stakes and the price of disobedience. Jang Yi ordered Joker to store the rest of the supplies since everyone had taken their share. Suddenly, a familiar voice caught his attention. Fang Yuking and her friend, who had been absent, appeared, dragging themselves forward. They claimed they hadn't received their food yet and asked if Big Brother Jang Yi had forgotten them. Jang Yi, maintaining his composed demeanor, assured them he hadn't forgotten. However, Joker had to store the food because there wasn't enough left for the two of them. Fang Yuking, tears streaming down her face, accused Jang Yi of not liking her anymore, despite all their years together. In response, Jang Yi slapped her, telling her to get away and revealing he never liked her. He declared that he was now engaged to the wonderful Joker. One of the women in the crowd called Joker a gold digger, and Jang Yi agreed, saying that Fang Yuking had always deceived rich boys to take their money. The man Jang Yi had humiliated earlier spoke up, claiming Fang Yuking had used him many times before. Other men in the crowd expressed that if they had known she was selling herself before the apocalypse, they would have taken advantage of her too. Humiliated, Fang Yuking fled. Two men grabbed Fang Yuking's friend and dragged her away. Can someone in the comment tell me where they are dragging her? Meanwhile, Shua, now more determined, pledged to do better for Jang Yi after witnessing Fang Yuking's public disgrace and receiving better food himself. After the chaotic scene, Jang Yi began organizing the building's fortifications. There were now 47 residents, excluding Jang Yi, Jokir, Uncle Yu, and his wife Xiaomei. Jang Yi formed them into 6 groups of 7, each taking turns guarding the building's stairs around the clock. They were instructed to make noise and alert everyone if enemies approached. Being a former army veteran, Jang Yi efficiently organized the groups. Back in his apartment, Jang Yi was studying something while Jokir asked what would happen if it started snowing again. As he pulled weapons from his dimensional loot storage, he explained that they were in winter and would be stuck for at least a month until the snow melted. He added that in the apocalypse, the biggest danger wasn't the weather but people. With the WAP weapon in hand, he had a chance to fight enemies without leaving home. Through the scope of his weapon, Jang Yi noticed some people in the building's garage. They were undoubtedly after the snowmobile, which Jang Yi pretended to leave there but had actually stored in his loot space. Uncle Yu called Jang Yi, informing him that the defense team was properly organized. He also asked Jang Yi not to take seriously what Xiaomei had said the last time they went to get medicine, mentioning that she's a chatterbox. Jang Yi shrugged it off but posed a thought-provoking question. Did Uncle really want to raise someone else's child in such difficult times? Strong men were valuable, and Jang Yi could have any woman he wanted. Noticing Uncle Yu's discomfort, Jang Yi added that Xiaomei was a good woman too, and if that was the case, Uncle should consider having children with her. Uncle Yu, however, dismissed the idea, stating that in an apocalypse, one shouldn't think about that, and then he went back to work. Turning to Jokir, Jang Yi mentioned that the matter of children should be thought about calmly. Meanwhile, in the tunnel they had dug, some people from Building 26 attempted to sneak in for hidden thefts. The first intruder almost got beaten as the guard shouted about an enemy attack, sparking a brawl on the stairs. The intruders hadn't anticipated that Jang Yi's building would be so well protected, and the survivors fled outside. Enjoying the good life, Jang Yi saw the fleeing enemies and felt a surge of satisfaction. Taking his WAP rifle from the loot storage, he calmly took aim through the scope. Despite knowing the deadly result of pulling the trigger, he fired with precise accuracy. One fugitive fell with a shot to the head, and the others, realizing the danger, ran even more frantically. Jang Yi found this feeling exhilarating and decided to enjoy it more. Each shot was precise, resulting in 7 bodies in the snow with 7 empty shells on the ground. Jang Yi was certain he had sent a clear message to all the neighboring buildings. Jang Yi, the leader of Building 25, had a rifle, and there was no way to confront him now. They must follow his orders. The next day, Joer brought food, saying she was practicing her cooking. Additionally, she asked about the noise on the balcony last night without hiding anything. Said he shot and killed 7 people. The woman's reaction was simply to say that Jang Yi is amazing. Jang Yi even asked if she wasn't curious why he used an AWP to do it. Jokir said it's none of her business, and it doesn't matter what he did. She's with him, and it's better than dying outside. In other words, she doesn't care what he does to others outside. Jang Yi even praised her, saying she's smart and doesn't have unnecessary curiosities, and he likes that. While on the other side, residents of Building 26 looked at the bodies in the snow. One of them is related to the boss and worried because they didn't get any food, and now they lack men to carry out their plans. Chen Feng got irritated and was ordered to bring the bodies of David, his relatives, and the others to have more food. Meanwhile, Jiji decided to go out for another round. Everyone respects him now, and of course they're very scared with headphones on and Uncle Yu on the line. Jang Yi is now sure the building is safe, while the leader of Building 26 could only stew in bitterness if he could get that motorcycle. He could go out to get cigarettes and food. Those who went before to look for the motorcycle didn't find it in the parking lot and were shot. Jang Yi rode the motorcycle until he reached where he wanted to go. District of machines and imported cars. The warehouses were so large that they hadn't been covered by snow yet. The roof. He descended with a rope and put everything in his infinite loot storage warehouse. Now these luxury cars have no value, but at some point they might. The next step was to go to a gas station. He needs it for his generators and machines, including his snowmobile. and fortunately for him, the station was completely buried in snow. Unable to dig 10 meters, frustrated that his plans didn't work out for the first time, he threw himself into the snow and thought about how good it would be to have gasoline for all his stored machines. It was while thinking about that he remembered that he also had a giant excavator stored with the little fuel he had. He could dig and dig in the snow. It didn't take long until he managed to clear a path to the gas station. Inside the place are the warehouse tanks of the station. Luckily, the fuel isn't frozen. All he needed to do was seal the tanks and store them intact in his loot storage space. For a moment, he realized that with this and his excavator, he can dig and retrieve everything buried, and no one will be able to stop him. Meanwhile, within the building, a neighbor's child had developed a high fever. Joker went to attend to the child but couldn't do much because Jang Yi always kept the medicines. Uncle Yu brought some leftover medicine from his girlfriend's son and comforted the worried mother, assuring her that everything would be fine. The child's fever decreased, but Joker reminded the mother to keep a close eye on his condition. Just as they stepped away, a scream echoed through the building. Aunt Lin, in a fit of rage, attacked the baby. The mother, driven by instinct to protect her child, intervened and was shot. Joker managed to grab the baby just in time. Aunt Lin, consumed by grief and madness, blamed them for her grandson's death, declaring that since her grandson didn't survive, no one else had the right to have children. Determined to save the child, Joker ran through the stairs. Aunt Lin managed to grab Joker's leg, but Joker protected the child with her body. Aunt Lin was ready to kill anyone in her path. At the critical moment, Uncle Yu arrived and kicked Aunt Lin down the stairs, rescuing Joker and the baby. He knew he had to keep everything safe in Jang Yi's absence and wouldn't forgive himself for failing. Aunt Lin, furious and deranged, screamed at them all. Uncle Yu made it clear to everyone that Jang Yi had eliminated Chen Jiang, and that was why they were all safe. Joker recounted a haunting story to Jang Yi. After Chen Jiang was gone, she had begged Jang Yi for medicine for her grandson. However, when she went to deliver it, she discovered a horrifying scene. Aunt Lin had killed her grandson to eat him, leaving the old woman screaming in denial. The men who had come with Uncle Yu insisted that Aunt Lin must pay for her evil deeds, suggesting they burn her, noting it had been a long time since they had a good bonfire. Meanwhile, Jang Yi had set up camp at a gas station, sleeping in a tent. He was ready to continue his exploration, now with an excavator to aid his efforts. He made his way to the city's military post, digging his way in. To his dismay, most of the military supplies were gone. He speculated that the military leaders, armed with all the equipment, might be planning to seize power from the surviving society. This realization made him determined to arm himself to defend against any threat, even from those who were once protectors. While digging, he broke through a wall of the camp and discovered a surprising cache, a vast amount of weapons and ammunition that had been overlooked. He quickly transferred these supplies into his loot storage. Feeling more prepared than ever, Jang Yi returned home on his snowmobile. However, this time he came back without bringing any food. When Jang Yi returned without food, the residents immediately started complaining. He countered that he had spent the whole day searching but found nothing. He reminded them that if they preferred, they could start going out themselves to find food and stop following him, calling them ungrateful. Realizing that by not bringing back food for one day, the residents felt unfairly treated because his efforts in defending the building weren't being appreciated. He declared the discussion over. Some residents approached him with a suggestion. They could accompany him on the next search to share the workload. As they spoke, Jang Yi noticed a strange man with one hand hidden behind his back. Sensing trouble, Jang Yi made a quick hand gesture, and in an instant, the rebel took a hit to the head and fell to the ground. The others with him apologized, but Jang Yi made it clear there would be no forgiveness. He shot them, and at least four went down while the rest fled through the window. The noise attracted Uncle Yu and Joker, who rushed over worriedly. Jang Yi calmly explained they were traitors, adding that he responded with mercy. Uncle Yu simply noted that they had become too comfortable and had forgotten their place. Jang Yi then went home, as if nothing had happened. J-Limit stayed behind, contemplating that the mercy Zhang Yi mentioned was just a warning to others. Back in his comfortable home, Zhang Yi asked Jokir if anything had happened while he was away. She recounted that Aunt Lin had gone crazy due to her grandson's death and had attacked a mother, but the situation was resolved. Additionally, someone from another building named Chenling Yu wanted to discuss something with Zhang Yi, but hadn't given specific details, only that she wanted to cooperate with him. Zhang Yi didn't care. He felt he had everything he needed, and those outside could only wait to die of cold and hunger. Curious if he was just going to ignore the woman's request, he asked for more information. Jokir explained that Chenling Yu owned a cosmetics company and now completely controlled Building 9. Zhang Yi was surprised by how a woman had managed to take control of an entire building. Jokir suggested that he should talk to this woman out of curiosity. Zhang Yi received messages from both Chenling and the leader of another building. He decided to go straight to Chenling to find out what she wanted. When she asked to speak by voice, Zhang Yi immediately insisted on texting instead, showing his impatience. On the other end, Chenling thought about how tough this man, who had taken down Building 26 and had a snowmobile and a rifle, must be. She explained that she knew about his snowmobile and that her building had 76 workers who could use it to search for food. In summary, she wanted the snowmobile and for him to provide food for them beforehand so they would have the strength to search for more with his snowmobile. She warned him that soon all the people in the neighborhood could turn against him, so it was smart to have allies. Discontent, Zhang Yi asked what would happen if he refuted her demands, noting he had never seen beggars make threats. Chenling calmly made it clear that Zhang Yi was a target for all the neighboring buildings. It was only a matter of time before everyone united to attack him if he didn't cooperate. Zhang Yi asked for time to think about it and hung up the phone. He knew his home was impenetrable, but if everyone united, they could bring down his building in an extreme situation. While contemplating his options, another call came through. This time, it was Leon from Building 18, who also wanted to cooperate. Leon explained that his building had been pacified, and everyone cooperated, distributing resources among themselves. His focus was on maintaining people's humanity, and he was willing to help Building 25 in any conflicts in exchange for a few supplies. Zhang Yi asked Jokir about the situation in Building 18. She informed him that Leon had unified all the residents of his building after the apocalypse, but their resources wouldn't last long. Zhang Yi replied that he needed to think about it. Soon, he saw several other messages from people asking for help or cooperation. Feeling overwhelmed, Zhang Yi went to Jokir to discuss his options. He might have to kill everyone to protect their position. Jokir, the doctor, felt that she had made the right choice in joining Zhang Yi. This time, Zhang Yi asked his girlfriend for advice, but also put her in a distracting position, asking what was better to cooperate or to destroy them all. Jokir couldn't answer properly because she couldn't concentrate, caught up in the moment. Sometime later, Zhang Yi asked Jokir to cut a bulletproof vest so he could put it on his legs. He had a new plan in mind. In the building's group chat, he told everyone that the neighbors had threatened him, hand over the snowmobile or they'd attack the building. He added a little spice by saying, if that happens, everyone will have to go find their own food from now on. Hope you all like snow cones. Soon, everyone turned against the neighbors and were ready to follow Zhang Yi to stand up to them. It didn't take long for Zhang Yi to be placed in a new group with only the leaders of the neighboring buildings. There, they made it clear, if Zhang Yi refused to comply with their demands, they would become public enemies of all the buildings. They made their demands, confident they were in control. But Zhang Yi had a brilliant idea. He decided to cooperate temporarily. He set up a meeting with all the leaders. His plan was simple: eliminate the leaders, and without them, the rest of the residents wouldn't be able to organize against him. With the meeting place set, he rallied his followers. To encourage them, he gave them quality food, saying they needed to be strong and energized to defend their home. One of them asked, "Can we hope for peace?" Zhang Yi replied, "Not only that. If everything goes well, there won't be any more food problems for anyone here. And maybe, just maybe, we can finally have a barbecue. Everyone idolized their savior and were willing to do anything for him. They exited through the tunnel, not the windows. Zhang Yi and all the residents went to the designated place. Even from afar, he noticed something strange. There were too many people there. So, he ordered Uncle Yu and the rest of the residents to come too, while he stayed behind, hidden with his rifle. At the negotiation field, Uncle Yu and the residents stood in front of all the leaders of the neighboring buildings and their groups. One of Zhang Yi's followers said, "They don't seem to want to negotiate. It's like they want to destroy us." Another added, "With so many of them, we wouldn't stand a chance. They're like ants at a picnic." However, Uncle Yu stated, their goal is to make Zhang Yi cooperate. Attacking us wouldn't help with that. Remember, ants hate picnics too. The leaders of buildings 26, 21, 9, and 18 were confident. They thought Zhang Yi might be intimidating, but against so many people, he didn't have the power to face them all. They scoffed, "Where's Zhang Yi? He must be hiding after seeing our numbers." Tianfang shouted for him to show up for negotiation. Uncle Yu warned, "The leader will only meet with the leaders. So, come this way." Chenling and the others hesitated, asking, "Aren't you afraid of death?" Uncle Yu smirked, "Not really. Zhang Yi's got this new thing called not dying. He's pretty good at it." Realizing how things were going, the leaders reluctantly agreed to meet Zhang Yi. Little did they know, Zhang Yi had his own surprise party planned, and it wasn't going to end with cake. Zhang Yi dialed Uncle Yu, advising them to keep their distance from the other groups. Uncle Yu, as sharp as ever, swiftly ordered his group to retreat to a safer distance. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi whistled loudly to gather everyone's attention in the open field. No one could pinpoint exactly where Zhang Yi was, nor could they comprehend where the grenade he hurled into the midst of the other building groups came from. Behind the leaders, a colossal explosion erupted, leaving a crater where nearby individuals were obliterated. Uncle Yu placed the phone on speaker behind the leaders and calmly asked if they had any questions. Wang Chang, bewildered by the sudden violence, inquired why such extreme measures were taken. Zhang Yi retorted over the phone, questioning why over 1,000 people showed up for a negotiation. Already making his way back to his building, Zhang Yi announced there were only 5 minutes left until the agreed-upon time. If they didn't agree to come to Building 25 to negotiate, the offer was off the table. Chenling spoke on behalf of everyone, stating they would accept the terms. With just one explosion, Zhang Yi had effectively eliminated over 20 adversaries, leaving him with just 20 remaining. Sometime later, all the leaders rushed up the stairs of Building 25 to the designated meeting place since there were no elevators, leaving them all exhausted. Zhang Yi confirmed everyone was present, and the meeting commenced. The residents calmly laid out their conditions for cooperation. And satisfied, Zhang Yi casually drew his Glock and placed it on the table, instantly shocking everyone. Zhang Yi clarified it was just weighing him down around his waist, but none dared to ignore the gesture. Discussing the impossibility of providing food for so many people, Zhang Yi offered a compromise, 10 meals per day for each building, which they could manage as they saw fit. Chenling expressed dissatisfaction, arguing her building had 76 people. Zhang Yi reiterated it was either this or face war with no escape. Ten Infang spoke up, suggesting Chenling didn't speak for everyone, and that they wouldn't convince everyone to cooperate without adequate food. Zhang Yi cocked his Glock, questioning if 10 meals per day were truly insufficient. Li Jam, the most peace-minded among them, intervened, stating negotiation was always preferable to a bullet to the head. Asserting his stance, Zhang Yi placed his foot on the table, emphasizing that food wasn't limitless. He pulled out a handful of seeds from his pocket and scattered them across the table, proposing they start planting to sustain themselves. Tianfang skeptically questioned the feasibility of planting in the icy conditions, to which Zhang Yi pointed out there was land under the snow waiting to be utilized. His condition was clear: every building must contribute manpower daily to plant crops. In return, he would provide 10 meals per day to each building, along with medical supplies, beverages, and, to the delight of the smokers present, cigarettes. The smokers forgot all else in their eagerness to take a drag. Zhang Yi produced a closed wallet from his seemingly bottomless pocket and handed it over for them to indulge while they discussed terms. Seems like even in an apocalypse, cigarettes hold their value, Zhang Yi remarked with a wry grin. Zhang Yi took out a closed wallet from his magic pocket and gave it to them to try while they smoked. Zhang Yi stood to the side, casually asking if the daily supply of cigarettes was agreeable. Li Jam seemed poised to interject, but the smoker stepped forward, enthusiastically accepting the terms on behalf of their group. With two leaders already convinced, the remaining three were pressured to follow suit, their reluctance overshadowed by the presence of the Glock-wielding Zhang Yi. While observing from the window, Zhang Yi noticed movement among the residents of the neighboring buildings. Immediately, he directed his Glock towards the leaders, demanding an explanation. Wan Qin assured him that all leaders were present and that there was no reason for an attack. Leon added that any uprising would be their own undoing. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi deftly retrieved his rifle and, through his scope's magic, took out the leaders instigating the rebellion with precise shots. Panic spread among those in the room as Zhang Yi swiftly neutralized the threat. Calmly, he declared the situation resolved and checked if everyone was still on board with the negotiation. The two smokers reaffirmed their agreement, while the others, subdued by the display of force, reluctantly followed suit. Li Jam, the last holdout, eventually acquiesced. With the agreement in place, they decided to start dispersing the next afternoon. As Zhang Yi patted Leon's shoulder, he expressed confidence in his ability to uphold their end of the deal. He promised to monitor their departure closely, leaving the nervous leaders under watchful eyes. Curious residents later sought clarification about the tense meeting. Zhang Yi explained how he had managed the situation, emphasizing the necessity of the food deal to avoid conflict with the numerous neighboring factions. Moved by emotion, the residents recognized Zhang Yi as their capable leader. Uncle Yu, however, remained behind, admitting to Zhang Yi that things hadn't unfolded as he had anticipated. In a more private setting, Uncle Yu revealed the initial plan to eliminate all apartment leaders simultaneously, but only the top 5 were targeted due to strategic reasons. The plan was postponed to prevent others from taking their place with renewed determination to destroy Building to 5. Uncle Yu, now understanding the calculated approach of his nephew, couldn't help but be impressed by Zhang Yi's strategic prowess and foresight. As the days passed, it became evident that the residents from other buildings would weaken due to the hard labor and insufficient food. Uncle Yu understood this plan and kept it secret. Back in his luxurious home, Zhang Yi's wife was doing yoga. Despite their tough circumstances, they enjoyed some comfort. When Joyker asked about the negotiations, Zhang Yi casually responded that all he needed to do in the coming days was manage things. He playfully threw her onto the bed, suggesting she stay indoors for the next few days, indicating they were prepared for another hot night. The next morning was bitterly cold, but everyone was set to work digging as promised. Their mission was to reach the ground, 10 meters below the snow, to start planting. Zhang Yi briefly inspected the progress before heading off to retrieve his snowmobile. The other two leaders searched for it but couldn't find it, bewildered by its disappearance. Zhang Yi's goal for the day was to locate a veterinary clinic, knowing he could find the euthanasia poison used for animals. He planned to use this poison to incapacitate 300 people, understanding that they wouldn't be able to find treatment in time. He knew that when the moment was right, this poison would be a powerful tool in his arsenal. Returning home, Zhang Yi ensured plenty of supplies for his building. Everyone was impressed by how much he managed to get. With a phone call, he notified the other buildings to come pick up their share. The leaders sent 3 people from each building, likely out of fear of being ambushed. The 30 neighboring buildings picked up their meals, and everyone was happy to see food. As Zhang Yi left, he overheard workers saying they were tired from hard work, but it was worth it. His group was confident they had food, but other workers in the building waited for their share, which never came. That night, Zhang Yi stepped out of his bath and heard neighborhood arguments over food distribution while he and his wife stuffed themselves. He chuckled, "It's nice to be the king when everyone else is a pawn." The next day, everyone was digging as Zhang Yi prepared for his daily round. He warned them about food shortages causing disputes. After a few hours out on his snowmobile, he returned with even less food, emphasizing the unpredictability of supply searches. This was part of his plan to accelerate internal conflicts. Buildings began throwing residents out to reduce mouths to feed, leading to chaos. Cozy at home, Zhang Yi listened to music and prepared his equipment. The next day, he saw the result: dozens of people thrown out, buildings bearing dispute marks. Some residents asked if they had to dig today too. Coldly, Zhang Yi walked among the bodies, warning that if they didn't want to end up like them, they had to work. Everyone rushed to dig. Uncle Yu noted fewer people came to work. Zhang Yi sent a message: no work, no food or cigarettes. The number of workers returned to near normal. Uncle Yu questioned why so many returned when food was scarce. Zhang Yi implied they were desperate. Chengling approached, dirty and worried, wanting to discuss the chaos. She suggested a scientific way to solve the food problem and even expanding their territory. Zhang Yi accused her of deceiving people for power, reminding her of the deaths in her building. He pushed her away, telling her not to count on him. Curious about Leon's building, where everyone was alive and working, Zhang Yi visited him. Leon explained he hadn't hidden anything, distributing food equally. Zhang Yi joked that everyone was starving equally. As Zhang Yi was about to leave, Leon asked him to wait, hinting at an important conversation. Zhang Yi's strategy to consolidate power amidst scarcity continued unabated. After his discussion with Leon, where he suggested prioritizing the strongest members for more food, he left Leon pondering the ethical dilemma of survival versus fairness. Leon chose to maintain integrity, opting to ensure everyone had an equal share, even if it meant facing starvation together. This decision left Leon conflicted, wondering if his principles would ultimately lead to the demise of his people. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi approached Wang Chen and Tenon Fang, the two leaders known for their corrupt practices. They seemed content with the food they were receiving, but Zhang Yi subtly reminded them of his influence and power, implying they could always seek favors from him if needed. This interaction solidified Zhang Yi's control over them, knowing they would remain compliant as long as their needs were met. Back at his home, other building leaders, witnessing the benefits Wang Chen and Tenon Fang received, approached Zhang Yi seeking similar privileges. These benefits, however, were not just about food. They also included cigarettes, a coveted luxury in their bleak reality. Zhang Yi decided to extend his care to everyone starting the next day and dismissed his guards, signaling his dominance and willingness to provide for those who cooperated with him. This decision sparked curiosity and unease among the other residents, who questioned why some received special treatment while others did not. Zhang Yi's response was cryptic, suggesting that certain individuals could earn more through their loyalty and contributions, planting seeds of jealousy and distrust among the neighbors. In the comfort of his home, Zhang Yi relaxed on his sofa, reflecting on how well his plan was unfolding. The next day, he ventured out to procure more food, ensuring there was enough to appease the hunger spreading among the residents. Aware that internal conflicts over resources could escalate, he had prepared poison to thin out the population strategically. Despite his foresight and the power he wielded with his weapons and resources, Zhang Yi remained wary. He knew the other leaders might eventually grow resentful and plot against him. Returning home with a significantly larger haul of food, he instructed his uncle and trusted allies to stand guard, sensing an impending confrontation. When the leaders from neighboring buildings arrived to collect their allotted meals, Zhang Yi noticed a peculiar look among those he had dealt with more closely, especially from Building 21. As he turned to retrieve their provisions, chaos erupted unexpectedly. Shouts filled the air, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the corridors of his building. Everything turned black as he fell to the ground, unconscious. Sadly, our story ends here. Just kidding. Subscribe for the next episode.